Two introductory remarks, apart from saying thank you for having me. The first is that the Connect part of the Commission is vibrant because the constituency is vibrant. I mean, as I say to my colleagues, we do the future, and we collectively do the future. And if we don't get it right, then the future is not very good. But the other thing to say, I think, is that the reason to be looking at cybersecurity now is, and the NIS proposal, is part and parcel of I would say, the emerging recognition by all the people who are not in a room like this that actually this digital stuff is really important. So 3 years ago, a bit more than 3 years ago, when I took up this job, and Barroso said, so I want the digital agenda to be the first flagship out for the Barroso II college. My colleagues said, well, that's nice to have, well done, Robert, yes, we understand it's kind of important. But it stopped there. And now, after the Deauville EG8, after the OECD findings, after sundry reports from the McKinseys and the BCGs of this world, personally I find, as you go around Europe and say this is really important, there's much more almost unprompted recognition that getting the digital infrastructure and the digital culture of the European Union right is a make or break issue for the future. And I think that's a very significant intellectual advance, a political advance, on which there is still time in the mandate of this Parliament and this Commission to capitalise. And there is also time to get it wrong. So the stakes are very big. And I want to think, therefore, about today the issue of cybersecurity, but in this broader context, and in the political context of the decision of the European Council that they will look at digital in October, and that's a huge opportunity. It comes late in the day, you might say, for Barroso II, but when the heads of government look at something for a short period significantly, there are certain things that they can decide that technical ministers and sectoral councils cannot. And therefore, I think, and we were brainstorming a bit about that at our table, the big question in the coming weeks in Brussels, and the 6th of June, the telecom ministers give their 2 pennyworth of ideas. The big question is, what is it that only the European Council can decide? So if we've got this opportunity once in 5 years and it's in October 2013, what do they have to say to unlock this intellectual recognition that digital is crucial and get it to actually a policy-making agenda? So the issue is big. But let me then, in that context, focus on the cybersecurity piece. When I came to this job, so I'm a historian, so I always refer to the past. When I came to this job in 2010, I came from DG Health. And what I found in the world of cybersecurity in 2010 in Europe was what I had found in 2004 in biosecurity in the world. In other words, after 9/11, with the bioterror risk as well as planes and big buildings, we had set up a G7 global health security coordination because the world had recognized that if there was a biosecurity threat, we weren't ready in any country in the world, and we surely weren't coordinated, and there was no culture of biosecurity. Since then, you had SARS, H1N1, and now you've got H7N9. So there have been a succession of potentially big, life-threatening epidemics. Thank goodness they have not been as transmissible as Spanish flu. So millions have not died yet, but one day something will go wrong. And so there's always been a pressure on the biosecurity front, as well as the G7, G8 cover, for governments to get serious. And over 10 years, I think we've got more serious, we're a bit better prepared. And then you come across to cybersecurity, and it's the same story all over again, the same metaphors. So we suffer from viruses, for example. The degree of hostile threat as well as mere human error is huge. And we don't know what to do. There isn't a culture of cybersecurity yet. And we're not coordinated, and we don't have a rules-based system that enables organisations of goodwill to coordinate optimally across Europe which means that at the global level, European interlocutors are not as credible as they could and should be. So the gap between where we need to be and where we are is huge. Initially, in 2011, we thought we could fix it through the G8 type mechanism. So if you go back to 2011, the William Hague speech at the Munich conference, let's coordinate, the EG8, very positive message, so that was good, that's as good as it got. We then had failure in the summit in London in November 2011 to get traction on cyberspace issues because the Cold War is still there in the minds of some, and so the people around the table couldn't agree, and it hasn't got any better since. The Budapest process being run by my colleagues on the EEAS front is good, but it's not a breakthrough process. And it's against that background that Mrs. Malmström and Baroness Ashton and Mrs. Kroes have come to say Europe needs to have a clear storybook, and we're modest about the storybooks we can produce in the camel-defining world of the European Commission, but you have now a proposal for a European cybersecurity strategy, and within it, the legislative proposal attempts to do for cyber what our member states and their security organisations have been beginning to do for 10 years on biosecurity. And I go into all that detail for two reasons. The first is, when it's bio, you know it's going to kill you and you worry as a citizen. And secondly, when you say let's do it for cyber, the intelligence and other communities say, this is kind of sensitive, but they've done it before in bio because citizens were worried enough. So the lesson is, this is not completely new. The Commission has not come up with a completely balmy idea without any precedent. We're trying to offer an evidence-based framework for modest cooperation, to create an NIS culture, to enable cooperation, and to build gently the capacity in those parts of Europe where it isn't there today. Having said that, that's the technocrat's vision. Nobody would argue that this is trivial. It's really sensitive, and that's why I think this is one of the issues where, if we want to have a serious digital future for Europe, NIS needs a bit of endorsement from the European Council, needs the help of the European Parliament to move fast. It's not a very long piece of legal text. The implications are huge, but it's not the sort of thing that lawyers need take more than 6 or 10 months from now to finalise. And fundamentally, I think I could then stop and sit down, because that's all there is. It says, here we agree, so it's not rule-making the Commission tells people how to do things, it's rule-making as a credible commitment by Member States. So what this directive says is we all agree to have a plan. We all agree to have executing agencies for the plan, certs and likewise, across the different actors in our national society. We agree to have a person who can talk about this and about breaches and about problems and their solutions in a secure way with their counterparts in other member states. That's about it. And it is sensitive because cybersecurity is sensitive, but it's not more sensitive than bioterror, and we've managed it on bioterror. So I think that there's a real reality check here. If the progressive improvement over the last 3 years of the intellectual awareness of digital is real, we ought to be able to fix the cyber problem before the next election. And if we fail to do that, if we say, it's very nice but very sensitive and we'll have a second reading, that tells us that actually we're not yet serious about digital as a whole. So this is one of the existential tests for Europe. Digital matters for Europe's future, cybersecurity matters for the digital future, and there is enough time to fix it all in the next 6 to 10 months. Thank you very much.